Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts College Football Podcast, your ticket to all things college football. Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? Join us as we talk college football from the national championship to college rivalries to bowl games to the Heisman Trophy to which conference is the best. We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between.
What is up? Welcome into the GSMC Football Podcast. It is a Monday. My name is Tom Dougherty, and that means this is the college football edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, as we're going to bring you some news and reports from the college football world. I know it's May. We're not really thinking about college football all that much, but there is some stuff to talk about, as we have some recruiting news to get to, some top transfers to talk about coming into the season, and also some guys that really turn some heads during spring football. Go through a guy, well, maybe a couple different guys throughout the top 25. We'll highlight how they will make a difference this offseason. Might be a guy whose name you hear quite a bit come the fall. Starting off quickly, that's kind of how we're going to do it. First, second, and third segments. Then fourth segment, we'll kind of bounce around while we talk about a little bit of Alabama, a little bit of Clemson, how Dabo Swinney is turning his Clemson team into a bit of an Alabama team. Obviously, you got to design the recruiting and all that such, and roster to being able to beat Alabama. Probably, most likely, obviously beating them once and not being able to even play on the same caliber as them last year, getting beat down in the semifinal game. You know how adjustments are always the thing you got to make when it comes to sports in general. Any sport, it's all about adjustments. And Dabo knows that to beat Alabama, he's got to make some certain adjustments, and he looks like he's doing just that coming into the season. Obviously, at quarterback, he's still got a decision to make. We'll probably get into that as well in the fourth segment. But in the first segment, recruiting. Second segment, transfers. Third segment, we'll go over those spring breakouts. So getting into the recruiting stuff now, I know also, obviously, recruiting is a weird thing. It's kind of year round. It's kind of, it's something that these coaches have to do. They talk about Nick Saban in general. Nick Saban, when he went and interviewed for the Alabama job, obviously he's been there for a few years now, but when he went into Alabama, he's like, you might not get the best overall coach, but you are going to get the best recruiter. And when you're the best, when a school gets the best recruiter, or a top recruiter, that's why I'm kind of surprised Kevin Sumlin doesn't have a job yet, because that guy was a top recruiter. What he did with his recruits is a different story, but getting the right recruits is definitely, I want to say it's half of it. I'm not going to put a percentage on it. I'm like, we're getting a top recruit. It's like, that's only it's like 65% of the job. The rest of it's just getting the coaching and getting them on the field. Yeah, health is an issue as well, but getting the right recruits obviously is going to make your team, can definitely make or break your team. If you get a bunch of 4-star recruits, you're going to have a good team, because those guys have potential. You get a bunch of 3-star recruits, you might have to coach them up a little harder. We'll see how they turn out. It might be a different when it comes to how they pan out and everything. As well as, you're making an investment with these kids when it comes to a scholarship, obviously. So you're definitely going to do your due diligence as to whether they deserve it or not. There's obviously the recruits out there that are 4 or 5-star recruits that are going to get pestered and courted by multiple different schools, and you just got to be the one with the best sales offer to them, I guess. So you're selling them versus them selling you. They've already sold you basically with their talent and their performance during their high school years. So getting into it now, obviously this year, as far as when it comes to this year, recruits obviously aren't, we're done with spring football already. When it comes to recruiting and different names that I might throw out at you, it's going to be probably for next year. The best guys really get offers before, after their junior season, going into their senior season. Some guys even go into their junior season after their sophomore season. So I know we even have a quarterback, JT Daniels at USC, who didn't even play his senior season of football at high school because he knew that they already knew he was good enough and can play at the college level, and he can even be fighting for a starting position right now in what would be his senior year in high school. So you never know. As far as it comes, I know there's going to be it is kind of considered a down year this year when it comes to quarterbacks. Obviously, there's a lot of teams already scrambling to find their quarterback of the future. Whether when it comes to the 2019 class, I know that there's a bunch of guys who are still kind of getting picked up. Oklahoma did grab a quarterback, Spencer Rattler. He was definitely. We've been definitely trying to figure out how many blue chip guys are left, how many big recruits out there. There's reports that about 18 blue chip quarterbacks are left out there. The guy Oklahoma grabbed was Spencer Rattler, and he was definitely a highly touted guy. Alabama, Miami, both the Arizona schools, Texas A&M, Texas, and Notre Dame all wanted him. Like, he's from Phoenix as well, so definitely looking at that. Obviously, they said JT Daniels was the number one overall 2019 player. Definitely upped himself to that 2018 class. So it looks like like I said, he's enrolling into USC early. That definitely will dilute that 2019 QB class as we get ready for obviously what we're going to see, not this year, but next year and the years to come. As far as, obviously 2018, there's been a bunch of guys. There's been Nevada, Michigan was able to get a guy who had already been a Notre Dame commit. I think Notre Dame was able to flip him and get his by the name of Cade McNamara or I don't want to pronounce it right. Cade McNamara, so we're going to go like that. We'll figure out probably hear how to pronounce his name correctly when he's on ESPN pretty soon for Michigan. Notre Dame, he was originally, but also had offers from Georgia, Alabama, and USC, all those teams are also looking for quarterbacks as well. Obviously, these are all way in the future. The fact that Alabama and USC are saying, and not to mention Georgia, who has Drake Fromm going into his sophomore season, true sophomore year. So is Tua Tagovailoa going into his true sophomore season. USC has JT Daniels, who literally is a senior in high school or junior in high school right now, skipping his senior year and going into freshman year in college. But yeah, it's whatever. Jalen Jones goes to Florida. He's from Baltimore. 6'4" athlete, definitely posted a high ranking at Nike. Could be pretty much any position. Could be finding himself at quarterback or even receiver or tight end, something like that. Big guy. Was also heavily recruited by Dan Mullen when he was at Mississippi State. Now, obviously, at Florida with Dan Mullen. Anyways. Georgia State gets a guy from North Carolina, Sam Howell, another quarterback. Obviously, we're still trying to figure out where all these quarterbacks are going to go. It's just like I said. Now that JT Daniels is out of the running for that 2019 class, he's becoming that 2018 class. Like I said, it's gotten some small cookies now. Tua's brother, Tua Tagovailoa, has committed now to play also with his brother at Alabama as he's looking to maybe compete for a job. Obviously, he's the younger one, but Tua probably going to have a stranglehold on that job until he's done, and he'll give his brother a chance. There's definitely some programs who need quarterbacks. There's another quarterback from Houston who's high on boards from a lot of different teams. Grant Gunnell is up there when it comes to Ohio State, Oregon, Oklahoma State, also Cal. If Oregon wants to get into that pro-style offense, this is probably the guy to look at when it comes to a guy who's going to be more under center, also out of shotgun, but not going to be running as quickly as the Oregon offense has run in the past. But if we want to get more towards the slower pro-style, but still no huddle, but probably more of a pro-style offense on how play calling is done. There's another guy who was supposed to go to Oregon, but also looking Also looking like he might be looking at Miami. This is a kid out of Oregon, out of Eugene, actually. Michael Johnson Jr., his dad coaches at Oregon, but also looking at Miami, as Mark Richt is making a pretty good bid for him as well. A QB out of the IMG Academy in Brenton, Florida. That's the big academy where all these highly touted guys at a middle school that are supposed to be these chosen ones go to this academy where it's pretty much all sports all the time. They go to get, I bet you they have college school as well, but the IMG Academy, his name is David Baldwin, and he's from California, but it could be still no school attached to him. As we'll see if he wants to go. I mean, obviously there's schools who are trying to get after him, but we'll see where he wants to go, as he's going to go back west or stay out east where he's been going to college. And then also another guy out of Georgia, Zach Calzada. So look at him too, as he's been looking to get into a SEC school as well, as a bunch of these programs are looking. And we'll see what's coming up next. I know that there's going to be another couple guys from Alabama, as Alabama did land a hometown guy, Paul Tyson, as well. He's actually the great-great-grandson of Bear Bryant, as well, as he's been considered a major prospect, but doesn't really set off any dominoes, as nobody really, or any alarms, as everybody was kind of expecting him to go to Alabama anyways. Not really going to affect any other schools. Nobody was really expecting him to sign anywhere else but with Alabama, that letter of intent. All right. Obviously, a lot of new coaches means new quarterbacks places and new places. Over this offseason, we saw some guys land where there's going to be new coaches. Obviously, when you have guys who are like I said, like Dan Mullen, perfect example at Florida. Now, what was recruiting a guy for Mississippi State, and you have a guy who maybe really liked you as a coach, didn't really care what program you were at, but if you were obviously deciding between Mississippi State and Florida, I don't know, I'm going to get the same coach as I would have anyways, but I'm going to go play at a much higher, more recognized school. I mean, not the Mississippi State, but Florida has been perennial power in the past, obviously, when they had Urban Meyer. But going over to Florida, playing in Gainesville, it's a higher echelon football school anyways, and he's going to get probably a little more spotlight, as those Gators are on TV more often than not, and probably a little more often than Mississippi State is. And you're going to get, he went to Florida. Florida's a great sports school. Got to go, love Florida. The Gators. Love the Gators. Love that. All right, enough on quarterbacks, as we're getting already closer to the end of the segment here, as I'm rolling along just gabbing about quarterbacks. Obviously, when it comes to recruiting, everybody's happy that they're going to get recruited. Obviously, we've already seen a video. I know we saw a QB from Oregon. His name's Cale Millen. Cale Millen, when he decided to go to Oregon he's with his coach, and there's apparently some sort of challenge in Oregon. It's a raw egg challenge. I don't know. I've never been a drinker of raw eggs, but he drank a bunch of raw eggs with his coach to celebrate his commitment to Oregon, to the Ducks. That's not a question mark. The Ducks, obviously, when they had Chip Kelly, were up there. I've heard other pundits and other radio hosts talk about there's people who get fired for a reason, and who fired who, and why are we seeing different teams really have these major turnovers. It's because of schools like Oregon, because of guys like Chip Kelly who really turned over these programs, and you have programs like Notre Dame and Texas who, we're supposed to win, but Chip Kelly gets big recruits and is changing all of college football and getting these guys fired. Now Chip Kelly's gone, and Oregon is they've gone through three. This is their third. They're on their third head coach now, Mark Helfrich. They had Willie Taggart, now Mario Cristobal, and you see it's interesting when you have a stalwart like Chip Kelly. Now he's back, obviously, in the Pac-12. We'll see how he changes, revamps that Bruins offense down there at UCLA with his own recruits, but it looks like Oregon's still trying to get back into the good graces that they were in with Chip Kelly, with some good recruits, and whether it takes some drinking some raw eggs, we'll see. Obviously, Coach Cristobal was pretty into it as these guys, they downed those egg yolks. I don't know how I would do that. I guess if I'm getting a full ride from Oregon to play quarterback, or have a chance at least to play quarterback, I'd probably do the same thing too. I'd be pretty excited. That's a pretty nice school. Go play up at Autzen Stadium in your Nike swag. Obviously, if you just love Nike, you go play at Oregon. Honestly, it's a great school for athletes. It's just amazing. They have a whole facility just for the studies of their athletes. It's a big and surrounded by a moat, athletes only, and you get all your Nike swag as well. So good for that. Good for Cale Millen, getting his egg yolks and his Nike swag with the Ducks there. All right, that'll wrap it up for this segment. We'll come back with some of the top transfers coming into this season, and especially probably headlined by Shea Patterson, who's coming over from Ole Miss to play for Coach Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. So we'll talk about that and some other transfers when we come back after the break. Stay tuned.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back. GSMC Football Podcast, a college football edition. As in this segment, we're going to talk about some transfers who are going to be probably all over your TV screens this year, as they are going to be now looking to be the number one guys for the teams that they're going to be transferring to. Obviously, the rules in college football, as it is in most sports in the NCAA, you have to sit out a year if you are going to be a undergraduate transfer. So if you transfer, say, after your freshman, sophomore, or if you're still in school, basically going to school, you have to wait a year before you can be playing, unless you're Shea Patterson, where you get an exemption from both schools and from the NCAA. There's also the graduate transfers who don't have to wait out a year. Basically, you have your traditional transfers and your graduate transfers. So we'll talk about the graduates actually first, because there's a couple names on here that you might recognize. One is Wilton Speight. We talked about him a little bit on this show in the past when we talked about Michigan and how they're kind of changing over things. They obviously get a big transfer in Shea Patterson that we talked about. Wilton Speight, though, was the quarterback who started last year, got hurt, then ended like one of the second string. Then he got hurt, and Speight could never come back. Obviously, he's had some issues with injury. He'll go over now to UCLA to maybe be the guy who replaces Jared Goff. I was going to say, no, replaces Josh Rosen. So obviously, starter at Michigan, you're going to go into UCLA. Chip Kelly, new coach there, new quarterback, and we'll see if he can be a fit, or some guy who comes in and just sits on the sidelines for Chip Kelly. Obviously, I mean, not your normal fit in a Chip Kelly offense, but remember, Chip Kelly coached Nick Foles at Philadelphia. So, I mean, he turned Nick Foles into a great quarterback, and we could do the same thing with Speight. Obviously, there's a different guy in mind for Chip Kelly. Could be Devin Monster, who's definitely more of that dual threat quarterback who can be more of the feeling that Chip Kelly wants to go to, more the direction he wants to go to. And there's also Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who was the number 2 guy on ESPN's list when it comes to dual threat quarterbacks. He's coming in as a freshman, so definitely some decisions to be making for Chip Kelly. Interesting decision for Speight to decide to go over to UCLA to a coach that doesn't really go with his offensive style and has 2 guys that do, and could beat him out for a job quite easily. The other guy is Keller Christ, was the quarterback for the Stanford Cardinals. Started 13 games for Stanford and went 6-0 as the signal caller last in 2016 before losing his job. Has had some injury issues. KJ Costello has now become the front runner, but he'll definitely so he decided to leave and go over to Tennessee and compete for a job, as he'll likely be able to push Jarrett Guarantano out of the way for at least a year when he comes in this summer as well. So there's a couple guys there we probably know the names of. Another guy who I do name Trey Watson. He was running back for Cal last year, now going to come over to the Longhorns in Texas. Texas had some issues when it came to the running game, as they didn't really have a guy as their featured back last year, clear featured back. Now Watson will come in, who has played over 30. I mean, he's played 37 games for Cal, and definitely coming in as a starter last year before he tore his ACL in week 2. Did have over 1,300 rushing yards and over 650 kick return yards last year. I mean, for the Bears over his career, and he gives Texas something they need when it comes to in the running game and experience in the running game as well. When it comes to we'll go back over to the more conventional regular transfers. Jalen Hurd now is a running back, is a receiver who was at Tennessee. Obviously started at running back. He was a running back for Tennessee. Now he's going to come in as a wide receiver. He's 6'4", 229-pounder. Did play 29 games for Tennessee at running back. Is going to go over to Baylor and is expected to be a wide receiver for the Bears there, as he's going to give definitely an option for Baylor in the passing game, a big target to throw to as well. So maybe it could be a little more of a tight end receiver hybrid kind of thing, where, I mean, he's obviously a big dude. Maybe slim. We'll see how he's slimmed down coming into the season. Then we also have Shea Patterson, who did get his immediate eligibility coming over from Ole Miss. Should definitely be a significant addition for Jim Harbaugh, as he's still looking for that quarterback to groom. We talked a lot about Patterson and the fact that he has had a nice career with the Ole Miss Rebels, but definitely the last 2 seasons has been a little bit of an issue, as he's only passed. I mean, he did pass for 23 touchdowns and for over 3,000 yards in 10 games with Ole Miss. So, I mean, there are some things there are some good things and some bad things when it comes to him. We'll see if Jim Harbaugh can get more of the good than the bad when it comes to his tenure at Michigan. Obviously, as he moves over from Ole Miss. Another big guy coming over from Texas Tech is a Braden Fehoko from Texas A&M, as he goes over to LSU. And this is a team that needs some help. He's a defensive end, by the way. Just want to let you guys know that I didn't get there. Defensive end coming over to LSU from Texas Tech, as he's definitely going to be a guy who can fill in some of the holes the Tigers have had as they lose a couple guys to the draft. Obviously losing Arden Key to the draft, and as well as Christian LeCouture. Definitely needs some guys to step up on the defensive line, as that's definitely a key to success in the SEC, having a big but beefy defensive line. We'll probably get to that eventually when we get to the talk on Clemson. Another guy to talk about, as we have more, obviously there's a lot of different transfers this year, getting into these conventional transfers. Another guy, TJ Simmons, wide receiver he is coming over from Alabama, did play mostly special teams, probably wants to get more in that first team offense, goes over to West Virginia. And Simmons, obviously he didn't really have much production in game in his previous school, one of the more lackluster guys on this list when it comes to these guys who are going to be talented, but obviously has had some interesting, has had some good sparks of success when it comes to what he's been able to show. And at WVU, obviously, he's going to be a good little addition to their receiving core that's already pretty stocked, as they have David Stills V and Gary Jennings to go along with him. Could be a good guy to add into that mix. Always nice to have 3 solid receivers for your quarterback. Obviously, West Virginia looking to get that offense into a more high-powered kind of offense this season. Another guy, Deontay Anderson, coming over to Houston from Ole Miss. Did play 12 games for Ole Miss as a true freshman in 2016. Sat out last year, obviously, before transferring to Houston. Then had obviously he had 32 tackles and interception in his freshman year with the Ole Miss Rebels, coming over to play for Houston now to get a little more time, as he was the number 1 safety in the 2016 recruit, but now he's coming over to Houston. It looks to give them a big boost in the secondary for the Tigers, and a team that throws the ball a lot and looks to defend as well. Another guy, a receiver for LSU. LSU is getting a couple of receivers. Obviously, they get the one through the direct graduate transfer, but now they have the other guy in Jonathan Giles, a wide receiver coming over from Texas Tech as well. I mean, Tigers did lose DJ Chark, and now they definitely need to get a better receiver on the outside. They haven't had much receiver talent in the past, and you get that offense. His offense has always been an issue for LSU in the past as well. So, Giles led the team in 2016 with over 1,100 receiving yards, 13 touchdowns, and almost 70 receptions. So definitely can be a big play threat who has had a few plays go longer than 25 yards. Definitely a chunk player when it comes to receivers, as that's Jonathan Giles coming to LSU. So definitely look for that name and in this season coming up here for you LSU fans out there. Another guy, we've kind of gone through most of these traditional transfers. There's a couple other graduate transfers I want to get to. A quarterback, Brandon Dawkins, going over to Alabama. Obviously, he was at Arizona, and he was the guy at Arizona before Khalil Tate came in there and just took over that job by force, basically, by just playing straight up amazing on the field. And now he's going to go over. Dawkins taking his talents over to Bloomington to play for the Indiana Hoosiers, and looking to maybe turn that team around as he becomes now the most experienced option at quarterback for the Hoosiers there. And he'll still have to play well and beat out a sophomore Peyton Ramsey and a freshman Michael Penix Jr. To get that job as well, but should be able to do that. He's a graduate transfer, so can immediately come over. Another quarterback, maybe the guy who could replace Luke Falk at Washington State, is Gardner Minshew. As he came over, he played for a couple of bad teams at East Carolina, and now, but he did put up good numbers, put up over almost 3,500 yards and 24 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons, as he'll be a guy that the Cougars can maybe get into that air raid, that Mike Leach offense, and turn him into a guy who could be a great replacement for Luke Falk, who obviously got drafted. I think it was like a third round, goes to the Titans. I think Titans grabbed him, so maybe another guy, Gardner Minshew, coming over to play quarterback for the Cougars. Definitely a guy who could jump in and play right away. Another quarterback looking to be a replacement for a guy who went out in the draft. That's Drew Brown. He comes to Oklahoma State from Hawaii, as he played last year. Obviously, he definitely looking to be that replacement for Mason Rudolph, but he played last year for Hawaii. Threw for almost 2,800 yards, 18 touchdowns, and he'll come in. Obviously, there's a couple of other guys for him to compete with. Keandre Woodty and Taylor Cornelius coming in as well to be guys who can take his job from him. But it looks like the transfer could have a chance to be a graduate guy with the most experience and coming in to take over for Mason Rudolph, that is, of course. Last quarterback, obviously, another one who is to be determined. That's Joe Burrow, obviously the guy from Ohio State, who didn't like the fact that they're getting some transfers coming over, or some other guys who are going to be he's being overlooked at quarterback. Obviously, Gaskin is looking like he's going to be the guy to take over for the quarterback position at Ohio State. Burrow definitely has some limited game experience there because of the fact that JT Barrett was the guy there for quite a while. But it looks like he's visited LSU and Cincinnati. Definitely LSU looking for a quarterback, as they have gotten a couple guys who got the defensive end, and they got a receiver, and a cornerback as well. So in this transfer market, and looking definitely to see if they can add a good passer there. And Joe Burrow could be a guy who can definitely be a help down at LSU in Baton Rouge. There's a couple other guys who have yet to decide where they want to go. CJ Fuller, a running back, played at Clemson, looking like he couldn't get quite as much as he fell down below Travis Etienne and Tavian Feaster, two guys who have deemed to be very nice pieces in the offense for Dabo Swinney, and looked like Svoller was not able to get as many touches as he wanted at all, and will look like he's going to be a guy. He's going to be a guy who wants to transfer somewhere else. As there's also, I mean, we didn't get to everybody, obviously. I would be the whole show maybe to talk about every single one of these transfer guys. But we did highlight some of the top guys who's going to be transferring to big schools, obviously. Keller Chris is going from Stanford to Tennessee. Obviously, Shea Patterson going over from Ole Miss to Michigan. Jalen Hurd going from Tennessee to Baylor. And, I mean, that's pretty much it. We went over a couple of guys. Deontay Anderson going from Ole Miss to Houston. You see a lot of the same schools on here, whether they're getting guys or losing guys. Whatever, just whatever makes the team better. How can you get the wins and stay undefeated and get into that conversation for the college football playoff? We'll see as we continue to talk about college football every week here as we lead up to the season and more workouts as we get through the summertime. Obviously, there's always stuff to talk about, whether it's recruiting, transfers, or what we're going to talk about next after the break, the spring breakouts and some guys that had nice spring seasons, and we'll probably see a little more of come the season. So stay tuned for that. We'll be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA Podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, GSMC Football Podcast, the college football edition, as we are going through now some spring players that really showed out and showed up during obviously during spring football. And they're going to be maybe guys that we notice and talk about a lot during this football season, and especially throughout the offseason. ESPN has come out with a list of their top guys to watch and everything, and definitely guys that definitely showed out during the college season and everything. We'll go through that a little bit and talk about and give you my thoughts on these guys and maybe guys that they missed out on, picked over, but obviously guys that have been shown out. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of defense on this list, obviously. I don't want to say I'm an offensive guy. I like turnovers. I like turnovers, so like touchdowns and turnovers. Those are exciting plays. Obviously, turnovers can lead to points. They're big shifts in the game, especially fumbles, like strip sacks are great for an offense. Speaking of strip sacks, I know a guy for Alabama is Raekwon Davis. Not quite Deron Payne, but maybe he can get there, as obviously Deron Payne was a first-round pick for the Redskins this season and is going to be they're going to have to need replacement. But when you have a guy like Davis who can jump right back in there, showed out during spring, obviously was a big reason why Nick Saban is probably going to be like, oh, maybe we need to fix our stuff we need to talk about the offensive line a little bit here, because we're having these quarterbacks run wild. Probably why you saw Jalen Hurts, his numbers not look as good. Maybe it was probably the best thing. I mean, not that anybody wants to get hurt, but Tua Tagovailoa may have been out there as well, looking not as good as we think he is, being chased down by guys like Davis. So definitely a guy to look at coming into this season. Another guy from Ohio State on the offensive side, I like offense. We like touchdowns. I like running backs. I like big running backs who can break off good big runs. Demario McCall is a guy, obviously, is a guy who could be that guy at Ohio State. I mean, they have had some. He was the number 2 running back coming into the season. Definitely had some nice spurts during the spring. Had 2 touchdowns in the spring game, as he has been limited, obviously definitely been limited due to this season, but could be a guy who can make a step forward. Could be the next Curtis Samuel. You never know. This is what I've been reading all along through this spring time, as we like to always make our comparisons throughout the year. At Washington, getting back to the defensive side, as they are, I mean, obviously Washington's offense has kind of, they're probably going to figure themselves out. Jake Browning, quarterback, is finally healthy again now. And obviously last year he played, but was playing with a banged up shoulder, is now healthy and it's going to probably just be fine as he pick up where he left off his sophomore year, as we all hope. Try to get Washington back into that college football playoff conversation. But on defense, they will have a guy, Keith Taylor, who's been definitely a standout over the spring. He was second on the team with 5 picks. Was going to be a projected starter in one of those cornerback positions. Has had that ability to grow not only physically but mentally. And that's definitely a big part of when it playing cornerback. A lot of schemes, got to be able to be buttoned up with your coverages and have good communication with your safeties and linebackers as defenses as much as a team aspect of the game as offenses. Everybody's got to work together and keep your assignments straight. So definitely got to look at. Another defensive guy is Gerald Willis from Miami, as he came over, had to miss his 2015 because of the transfer rules. And then also missed last season due to some personal issues, but could be a guy who could be coming back and playing fresh, playing healthy at the defensive tackle position, and make that Hurricanes defense a little more scary, as it was definitely the turnover chain was a big deal. Obviously, the secondary was a big deal last year, getting a lot of interceptions, wearing that turnover chain proudly on the sidelines. But it's going to be maybe the defensive line. Got to figure that out, as it's always. I mean, college football is interesting. College football really comes down to line play, as football does in general. I mean, the line play in football is so important, whether it's your offense or defensive line. If you're able to create block, get your blocks, hold your blocks for your running back, hold your blocks for your quarterback, or and then also on the defensive side, getting penetration and getting into that backfield, whether it's stopping the run or the pass, getting to the quarterback. So important. It can definitely make or break a game, and especially obviously you see all the highlights. A lot of stuff happens on the outside or down the field with your skill players, but a lot of that success from your skill players comes from the defensive line or the offensive line, whether the defense is getting home or the offensive line is able to hold their ground and allow the offense to work efficiently as you'd want it to. Another defensive tackle is going to be at Michigan, Michael Dwumfor, definitely a guy who coaches were really impressed in this spring. Obviously, he's a big junior. Not obviously, but he is a big junior. Obviously, a guy this spring who was a standout, as I'm going through all these guys, but did not play as much last season, trying to catch up as he's been really working on that off the ball speed, definitely becoming a guy. I mean, that's the thing. It's not about being, really, I mean, size and strength is great, but if you can be the fastest guy off the ball and really stun those stun those offensive linemen, because I mean, he's a defensive tackle, he's going to be on the inside. That's when you get into this talks about, especially if he's really quick off the ball, that's when you start talking about stunts. When I say, or double teams and taking up 2 linemen, and that's when you can free up space for your linebackers to run right through and get to the quarterback or get into the backfield and stop the run, whatever it may be. Especially playing in the Big Ten, you're going to have a lot of different kinds of looks coming week to week playing in the Big Ten. So Michigan, obviously, definitely pride themselves on their defense. He could be a guy who is quick enough off the ball where you can take up two guys, or take up just stun that guard, stun that center, and be able to get them off their blocks, and give room for the linebackers to come in behind him. And that's kind of the goal there when it comes to guys who are quick. Obviously, they still have some other guys like Mo Hurst, who is an All-American, and we'll see if he can replace a slot to fill that role in the inside. Obviously, they have a defensive line at Michigan. Michigan is quite talented and quite deep as well. So, flipping over to the other side, on the offensive line, Notre Dame, always known for their offensive linemen. Another guy to look at is Liam Eichenberg. Obviously, getting Quentin Nelson and Mike McClinchy over to the NFL in the offseason, having a replacement like Eichenberg just to jump in there and be a top lineman is great to have if you're Brian Kelly, because Notre Dame has always been able to pride themselves on their offensive line talent. Having two guys go in the top 10 from one offensive line is pretty nice in itself. Obviously, last year they had a very, very talented and very successful offensive line, but they're losing. He's definitely can be a guy who can fill into that slot that McClinchy left, and has been a guy on ESPN's board as number 6 tackle, numbers 67 overall when he came into the college ranks in 2016 from high school. And McClinchy could be a guy who could jump right into where McClinchy was at left tackle. And obviously, all important left tackle. That's especially for obviously most quarterbacks are right-handed, and when you think about blind sides, that's the left side of that offensive line who's got to be on careful as you're protecting that blind side of the right-handed quarterback. Usually you're going to go against the best D end as well, the best pass rusher that a team has. So left tackle's got to be usually your best lineman. Speaking of quarterbacks to protect, Stanford has had a guy who walked on and got himself a scholarship and filled the hole, found a job because of injury, and that's Jack Richardson. Came in as a walk-on at Stanford. David Mills and KJ Costello were both hurt. Richardson was the only guy who could spin it there behind the line in the quarterback position for David Shaw, and David Shaw rewarded him with a scholarship after a very impressive spring. Obviously, he was the breakout star for the Cardinal, looking like he could be even a guy who, coming into the training camp in August and July before season starts, that could be fighting for the starting job, or be a guy who could be ready to go if there were any more recurring injuries with the other two guys in front of him. But he was a guy who definitely turned heads during this offseason, or during the spring season, as he was more than serviceable, as according to the coaches, and like I said, earned a scholarship. That's not. Hey, you're gonna have a free scholarship. Going into you go to Stanford, you do all the work in high school, everything to get into Stanford, and then you have to pay for it. The thing about Stanford, obviously, is we can go into the whole paying for Stanford and everything. It is a private school, and if you're good enough to get into Stanford, they want you to go to that school, you're going to be accepted, and you can't pay for it, or your family can't afford it, they'll figure out a way. There's plenty of money in that school to be able to pay for it. But now you ain't got to worry about that at all. You're going to be getting a football scholarship, buddy. Be ready for practice, though. Be ready for that schedule that I've talked about multiple times. After, remember, Richard Sherman that one time came on that podium when he was playing for the Seahawks and was talking about whether guys should get paid, and saying, at Stanford, my schedule was 5 a.m. weights, 9 a.m. class, or 8 a.m. class, 2 o'clock practice, 6 o'clock till sleep, homework, or more workouts at night too. So it's crazy. It's every single day, every day, all day. It's kind of everything. And your classes aren't nothing. Just Stanford caliber education. Look at their running back right now. The running back's Bryce Love. He's like a biology major, so he's going to labs and doing all this crazy, difficult, complex biology stuff. So it's kind of ridiculous. I know we're just picking out random guys throughout the top 25. I know there's guys all over the place who can be big helps. I know at USC they're going to need some help on with the receiving core. Obviously, tough year last year after losing Juju Smith-Schuster to the draft. It was probably one of the more weak receiving cores that USC has had. With obviously, it was made a little bit better when it comes to the fact that you had Sam Darnold at quarterback and Ronald Jones at running back. But it looks like they're going to have a guy, Velus Jones Jr. could be a guy who could come into the receiving core at USC and be a difference maker. Obviously, they need more consistency. They need more of a playmaking guy at receiver for the Trojans to do well. Obviously, he had a nice spring, was a good deep threat during the games, and made those quarterbacks look good as well, as he was a guy that definitely put on some highlight plays at spring practice. Was a redshirt sophomore now, and could be a guy for this season to be a guy you look at. Velus Jones Jr. for the Trojans. All right, that will wrap it up for this segment, as we will come back with the next segment and go over just some news from around the country. I know there's some stuff talking about some comments from Tom Herman, who came out. We'll talk about Clemson and the fact that they're definitely trying to get a more of a Alabama kind of culture there at Clemson, and Dabo Swinney and his efforts to do that. And we talked about that at the beginning of the show here, and also some news regarding sports betting, as that actually does have some college football implications as well. So we'll talk about all of that in the final segment when we come back. So stay tuned.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, welcome back. Final segment of the day today on the GSMC Football Podcast. I have been your host, Tom Dougherty. This is the college football edition, of course, of this GSMC Football Podcast. On a Monday, as we get our week started with some news from the college football world. As we have gone through some stuff regarding recruiting for usually, 2019 recruiting, really, because 2018, that's pretty much all done. Everybody's already at school, spring practice. I know we still have some freshmen obviously coming in the fall, but most guys who, if they're really expecting to play as a freshman rather than redshirt, are going to be usually enrolling early and coming to play in the spring. We saw a bunch of guys do that, as well as a guy coming not only a semester early, but a year early. JT Daniels graduating from high school and declaring to be a part of the class of 2018 at USC. May even fight for a job in his, I even call it his pre-freshman year, because he's supposed to be a senior in high school, but nope. Gonna be a college kid coming into this year. As definitely a guy who, if you feel like you're going to be able to be good enough to play at USC as a quarterback, you can definitely think that. They tell you to come in a year early, you're going to come in a year early. He's definitely got the size and ability to do that already. He doesn't look like he's modern day. You went to modern day, you've been well versed in old football. Only 6'1" though, so I feel a little undersized. I thought he was a little bigger than that, but 6'1" right now, 190 pounds from modern day high school, 18 years of age. So we had a 19-year-old get drafted in the NFL already, but he plays defense, a little bit different, not completely different. All right, getting into the stuff from the rest of the college football rankings, I did want to touch on the fact that, we did have just was decided this morning, breaking news on the show today. It has been ordered that from the Supreme Court that the federal ban against state-run betting has been deemed unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. So now we're also seeing reports that around 32 states are going to be making over the next 5 years, will be setting up their own in-state betting associations or organizations or agency or whatever it may be. They're going to be setting up betting. So I don't know about California or anytime soon, but definitely some of these states around the Midwest, probably along the East Coast, will be getting their betting systems figured out and set up, because it's okay. It's all right. The Supreme Court says, nope, the federal government cannot put a ban on it. As the states want to do it, they can let themselves decide it, as we're getting, obviously, states' rights are a big deal right now. That's a whole different politics show. Don't need to get into that, but just want to report that now the states are able to set up their own things, as according to the Supreme Court has made that available for them to do that. And that's going to have some serious implications in all sports. We're getting to a point here where we have fantasy football, we have daily fantasy. Obviously, college football isn't quite involved in that, but it is definitely involved in sports gambling. when it comes to just betting lines, over-unders, straight up money line picks, stuff like that, because I mean there's definitely a lot of mismatches in college. There's a lot of stuff you can pick and be available to. I mean, when I was in college, I did a little bit of betting after I turned 21, and was just like, well, some of these college games are pretty easy wins. I mean, some of these games these guys are going to cover or not. Obviously, I can get into a whole betting thing. Not going to do that on this show, but now we're getting into another conversation where I can again bring up the whole fact that now we're going to have the public, not that they've already started to make money. There's tons of offshore betting websites. You go to Vegas or Atlantic City if you want to, or Reno, wherever may you do your betting and bet on college sports now. You could, but now it's going to be even more widespread where people are going to be able to make money off of players that are not paid. Well, they are not paid monetarily. They're paid through scholarships. I mean, it is true because, I mean, the whole thing I talked about last show was the fact that with Jim Harbaugh and his comments on people being paid, obviously a stipend from college to college athletes, if they're getting a scholarship and then also getting paid, they wouldn't be able to actually count that as a income. They'd be taxed as a gift tax. So that's why it's not even like I was probably a little incorrect there when I said, why would it be 40% tax in that tax bracket? They'd be taxed a lot lower if they only made $40,000 a year. But actually it's a gift tax. So it's a flat rate, 40% tax, and the government probably they'd be taking close to half of that gift, quote unquote, or a stipend that these players will be getting for their services. So might as well just stick with the old way and just have your education and focus on that. As obviously he's right, and 1% of all college football athletes will be making the NFL. Truth, that is true. But I do think that I still think there should be, now that, especially with the whole betting aspect of it, there should be availability for some of these higher echelon athletes that are on TV all the time and now going to be bet on a daily basis for these higher echelon schools. Could just take advantage of their likeness at an earlier age and just make some money. I mean, Tua Tagovailoa, a perfect example for a guy who is going to be now probably a starter for the next 3 years at college at the biggest program in the nation and can't make a dime off of his likeness or his popularity at Alabama. So just let him do that. Maybe let him get an agent, let him sign an endorsement deal, and put some restrictions on that. Or rather than pay for him. But I've already gone into that. Listen to the last episode of this podcast on Friday when I talked about that. But yeah, that's the thing. Sports betting now is going to be available, and always, of course, that will get into the college football and create a conversation again when it comes to the fact that we're going to be betting on players that don't make any money. College basketball is the same thing. And everybody, of course, is all worried about, they're going to start throwing the games. They're going to start affecting the points. Teams are going to, I wouldn't say their teams aren't going to lose games on purpose. They're going to they're going to win by less than they're just not going to cover, basically. Is what they're going to do is, so you're favored by 10 points. So why don't you just win by 8 and we'll take the underdog because it's better payout for taking the underdog and just win by 8. Don't miss a free throw at the end of the game. Something like that. So people are afraid that's going to happen. We'll see if it comes to that. All right. So if we come to, we have about 6 minutes left in this show today, as I'm going to give a little comments on Dabo Swinney and the fact that now he's starting to get, obviously Swinney, a guy who went to Alabama, knows how to get it done at other schools as well. He's obviously won national championship at Clemson. Still has a decision to make with the quarterback, kind of a very similar decision that Nick Saban has at Alabama to make when it comes to the quarterback. One guy, they're both freshmen-ish. Obviously, Tua is not quite a freshman anymore. Has proved himself in a Crimson Tide uniform on the biggest stage. Trevor Lawrence has not quite done that. Only impressed at the spring game when it comes to wearing the orange and purple. Was a top flight college, obviously top flight high school quarterback. But when it comes to the defense, it's the defensive line that I've keyed on a lot. We had that big defensive lineman stay at Clemson instead of going to the NFL like he could have. Has the two young kids. Obviously, that's what Christian Wilkins, who I was saying, could have stayed. Obviously, you got Clellan Ferrell and Austin Bryant are also two younger guys who he wants to stay with and really be good, be dominant on the defensive side. And obviously Tigers will start returning. Those are, 3 of the 17 starters the Tigers are returning this year. They're also returning their punter and their place kicker. So it looks like they definitely could be on their way to a national championship. You see a lot of different games come down to to field position. That's punting. Big deal. People overlook it a lot in football, but punting is actually a big part of football when it comes to flipping the field, pinning people deep. There's nothing better than maybe stalling out on offense around your 50-yard line, bring out your inside the 5-yard line. Then your interception or fumble away from getting great field position, or say you stop them, you're going to be right back where you were at the other side. You're going to be right back where you were at the other side with the 50-yard line too. So. Punting is a big deal. Obviously, kicking is points. So, points are definitely being a big deal. Points are a premium in college, as place kicking is a big deal there at the end of games as well. So, you got to be able to make sure you have reliability when it comes to the kicking game, because that leads to points directly. All right. Also, Swinney. He's worried about stopping points from the other team, as well as he's obviously got those guys on defense right where he wants them. Keeping a guy like Wilkins is a big deal, and he's trying to turn this team into more of a Alabama style. Go after your quarterback, just be bigger and meaner than the other team, and beat them on the defensive side as well. All right, turning over to Texas. Obviously, Tom Herman now has had a year under his belt there at Texas in Austin. Longhorns trying to still turn that program around ever since. Obviously Mac Brown, like I said, people get fired for a reason. Mac Brown probably got fired because of what Chip Kelly was doing in Oregon. Oregon just kind of came out of nowhere, was getting national championship games. Texas wasn't. Sorry, Mac, you're done. Obviously, and Texas now has gone through. They've gone through Charlie Strong and now Tom Herman. And Herman is a guy who doesn't like to lose, obviously. Definitely a very animated coach, and is going to be probably trying to figure out who is going to be his star this year. Obviously, we're not really seeing that many names coming out of Texas. They do get that running back coming over and from Tennessee, so it looks like he's going to be a guy who could be big for them. But when it comes to Texas, obviously, it's figuring out how to get a winning season together. And they started off a little hot last year, finished off not so hot. But being able to have a consistency on both sides of the ball, and being able to, they're in the Big 12, for goodness sakes. Not being able to win enough in the Big 12. Looking at their schedule this year, we can start. Checking off. I can check off wins. The fact that they have these stinker games coming up. Coming throughout the year always is not a good thing for Tom Herman's teams. Obviously, you want to be able to have consistency and be able to beat good teams, and not being able to beat the not so good teams, and also be competitive against good teams. They're going to open up at Maryland, got to be a win there. Then you got to beat Tulsa at home. You're going to have a test at home against USC, but you should be able to beat that USC team coming off losing their quarterback, not really having an idea what they're going to do at quarterback. That could be a win. Then you're going to have another test at home against TCU. That'll be a tough game. You got to beat Kansas State. You're playing Oklahoma at home in the Red River rivalry. They have a quarterback that's playing baseball right now. Obviously, Kyler Murray's still pretty good. That should be a tough fought game where you could maybe squeak out a win there. Then you're going to play Baylor at home too. That should be a win. The only one that's kind of questionable, maybe Oklahoma State. You drop that one on the road. You have Texas, West Virginia at home. That should be a tough win, but Will Grier going in there on the road could win that game in Austin. Then you have Texas Tech on the road and Iowa State at home. That's going to be a trap game for them, I bet. And then Kansas on the road to finish off the season. So you can finish that season with a few wins. They should. there's the only real tough game in this one is Oklahoma State. And the Big 12 is kind of reloading right now. Obviously, the only big returning quarterback is Kenny Hill for TCU, and they played them at home early in the season. So I mean, this coming off that USC game, so it'll be tough back to back. But both games are at home at the in Austin. So you got to be able to win those games if you are going to be good this year. And that's Tom Herman. Probably those 2 games are probably a circle on his calendar right there. You got that homestand, 3 games in a row. You beat Tulsa, beat USC, and roll those 2 wins into that TCU game in Austin. So I mean, before going on the road, I mean, their only tough road game this year is the one at Oklahoma State. Maybe the one at Texas Tech, but you play Oklahoma at home. They're reloading at quarterback. You play West Virginia at home. They have a guy who's coming back. So I said, I did misspeak. They do have Will Grier is coming back as well. So it's not just Kenny Hill, but Will Grier is also coming back at quarterback for West Virginia. So you have 2 schools, but the only 2 Oklahoma schools, both are reloading at quarterback. Baylor, don't really know what they're doing. Their football program is kind of up in the air ever since RG3 left and Bryce Petty left. So Texas definitely has opportunities this year to get some wins and maybe squeak out a little 10-win season through that Big 12 schedule. But knowing Texas, they'll probably lose that TCU game. They'll probably lose that Oklahoma State game. They'll probably lose the West Virginia game at home, maybe even the Oklahoma game. I mean, knowing them, just knowing how they've been over the last few years. But the talent they got now, they should be able to win at least 3 of those 4 games that is listed there. So we'll see. Obviously, got a long offseason. We'll talk about them as more and more as we go on. All right, that'll wrap it up for today's show on a Monday, as we have gone over a bunch of stuff: recruiting, transfers, the big spring breakouts. I mean, people to look forward this offseason. I mean, this season that you might not know, some names that are going to become household names throughout the season this fall. So stay tuned. We'll be back on. Well, stay tuned for the next show on Wednesday. Obviously, come back on Wednesday. We'll be having another show for you, as we do every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Here, the college football edition of the football podcast. Jesse will be back on Tuesday. Tomorrow for a football show, we'll go over everything, whether it's NFL, college football. I'm sure he'll be talking about this betting stuff as well. So tune into that as well on Tuesday. I'll be back on Wednesday for more college football stuff. So see you then. Everybody have a good week.